All right, so let's move forward to the night. Okay, last night comes, and you want to talk co-main? Or you want to talk main event first?
I don't know. More controversy with the co-main. Let's go with co-main. But
Let's go in chronological
throughout
order.
the
Like
night.
we've sat through the prelims now. We've gone through the other fights. Boom. Patrick Cote retires. Everyone goes, okay, I guess that happened. And then
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, I said earlier, I didn't actually see most of the fights. I only really paid attention for the co-main and main. I tried to watch them. You know, the kids, they aren't 21. We were in Vegas. They wouldn't allow us in the sports room to watch them. So we watched them on a phone, paid attention for the co-main and main. Co-main event going into this fight, I spoke about it last week in depth. I thought Chris Weidman was up against it in this fight. I really did. But I got to say, I was impressed. He went out there. I mean, Mousasi definitely had the striking edge. We knew that. We knew that going into this fight. He was the better striker. But Weidman did well. Weidman was doing what he needed to do. You know, he was getting the takedowns. And he was consistently getting those takedowns. I mean, Mousasi's going to have to work on that. I mean, I know he's talking a lot of trash, and he's achieved a lot of things. He's saying he's going to be the champ and all this type of thing. But, dude, you've got to put up some kind of defense. When somebody's taking you down, like Chris Weidman, a guy that you know is going to shoot on you, you have to put up some kind of takedown defense. He was just taken down time and time again. There was nothing there. So, Mousasi, good job. Slow your roll, though. Come on, learn how to stop a takedown. But even though he was getting taken down, he was getting back to his feet. He was doing well. And then, of course, the second round. What is your take on the second round, Lewis? Let's hear it from you first.
I mean, first of all, I got to say, just going into the fight in general, watching them, they both seemed, it's a little bit off. They both didn't seem, I don't want to say like sloppy, but they both just didn't seem like they were.
Hold on. It's okay. You can say sloppy because you texted me last night as the fight was happening and said, and I quote,
Sure.
I'm sorry, and I quote, am I crazy or is this really sloppy?
Well, look, fuckface, to you, I'm going to text you something like that, but because I get fucking berated by fans every time I have any misstep of anything on this fucking show, I get 100 tweets or 100 shitty comments on YouTube being like, you're a moron, you don't know anything. And here's the truth. You want to know what? These people are right. I don't know. So that's why when I text you, I'm like, hey, dude, am I crazy or are they looking sloppy comparatively to the way that I've seen them look before? I felt like Mousasi was whereas, yes, he was beating Chris Weidman to the punch. He was kind of sloppy and he was kind of getting hit where I was like, yeah, dude, you're a better striker than this and you're getting hit. And then he had no takedown defense at all. I almost felt like they were both in there just kind of beating each other up in a not super impressive way. I didn't feel like either one of those guys would have been able to beat you last night. And I'm not just sucking your dick. Me and Dave Smith were watching that and we're like, yeah, both these guys just don't look like the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, but the thing is, sometimes when you get two really good guys, and they both are really good guys, let's be honest, they can make each other look bad, but they can't really make you look sloppy, and they did look a little sloppy. I mean, Mousasi had a good job, Wyman had some good takedowns, but it was a scrappy fight, and sometimes fights are like that, so I'm not going to berate them too much for that. But the second round, let's get into all this controversy, Lewis, because that's the real talking point here. The real talking point isn't whether or not they were sloppy and how shit Mousasi's takedown defense was and yet again how sloppy Chris's striking is. The controversy and the talking point is the end of the fight. Now, what happened was, as we all know, if you watch the fight, Weidman went in for yet another telegraphed takedown attempt. Mousasi kind of spun and kind of had him in like a headlock position, if you will. His head was down towards his crotch area. And from here, Chris tried to manipulate the rules. Now, if you follow the sport closely, you'll know if a person has one hand on the floor, in the past, that was a downed opponent. Now, what people used to do was they used to touch the floor with that hand, and therefore they couldn't be kneed in the face. When realistically, they didn't need to put that hand on the floor. They were totally manipulating the rules so that they wouldn't be kneed.
But you can't fault him for that because you literally just gave DC credit for fucking balancing on a towel.
Pardon me?
You can't fault Weidman for trying to take advantage of those rules when you give DC credit for balancing on a towel.
No. But that's two different things. One's a weigh-in, the other one's a fight. At a weigh-in, you try and make weight any way you can. At a fight, you're supposed to be a man and fucking fight,
right.
Not manipulate the rules and put one hand on the ground or two hands on the ground. Be a man, stand up, fight, go out there, tooth and nail, bite down on your mouthpiece, and let's fucking do this. Leaning on towels or leaning on the floor is, that's for at the weigh-ins, Lewis. So, I think I kind of have a difference in opinion.
Right,
there.
you don't have a problem with somebody cheating. You have a problem with somebody being a pussy.
Yeah, listen, in the fight, don't cheat. At the weigh-ins, listen, I kind of, come on, he wasn't cheating. It was just, he was trying it on, and he got away with it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You try. God loves a trier is the old expression, and he tried and he got away with it. So, don't be mad at DC for it.
Of course.
But yeah, so in the fight, so anyway, it used to be one hand on the floor. That was a grounded opponent. Now they've changed it to two hands on the floor is a grounded opponent, which even still, to be honest, I find kind of crazy. The fact that you have two hands on the floor, that is stopping you from being a grounded opponent. So, in my opinion, both hands are supporting you. So how can you be a grounded opponent? Anyway, that is the law. That is the rule change. Both hands down, not fingers, palms or fist on the floor is a grounded opponent.
So in the moment, Weidman, you're saying, was trying to play the game where he was touching the ground, not touching the ground, touching the ground, not touching the ground, almost trying to get Mousasi to foul.
Well, of course he had his hand. Well, no, he wasn't trying to get Mousasi to foul.
Or not
but he was
strike.
playing the game. He had his hands on the ground. He even spoke about this at the post-fight press conference. He said the referee came in, explained that rule. He said, so I had both hands on the floor, and I knew I couldn't be kneed in the face. Now, what it appeared to look like, of course, we have the benefit of slow-mo replay, was that Mousasi kind of pulled him up a little bit first. He yanked him up and then kneed him in the face, and then he kneed him in the face again. Now, from there, this is where, and listen, so it's like I'm always bashing Weidman. I'm not always bashing Weidman, but I'm just calling it as I see it. Whether it was Weidman, Mousasi, anybody else, I would say the same thing. Chris Weidman has only got himself to blame for that fight being finished. Now, I must admit, I was sat in a restaurant watching it on a phone. I've rewatched it this morning, but last night everyone at the table was confused, as I'm sure everybody in the arena was. Nobody knew what was going on. The referee didn't know what was going on. Mousasi and Weidman didn't know what was going on. It appeared that it was initially two illegal strikes, okay? So Weidman thought he had 5 minutes. But come on, man. Talk about an Oscar-winning performance. He was laying it on thick.
Yeah.
He thought he had 5 minutes, but he was kind of like rolling around on the floor, clutching his head. He was putting on a real performance here. He even rolled back from being on his knees to on his backside. Now, what happened was, of course, with the benefit of slow-mo replay, they went, hold on a minute. Those knees were legal. Now, because he was acting so hurt and so injured, the commission said, no, you're not continuing to fight, so they called it a TKO. Now, I don't know if that was the right decision, but Weidman was trying to win via a disqualification or at the very most get a point deducted from Mousasi.
Well,
that's what he was. Go on.
You had it almost right, because there's a couple of factors that you're missing, because I was doing research after the fact, okay? So here's the thing.
Okay, make me look like a dick.
No, I'm not going to make you look like a dick, because you have almost all of it right. Here's the thing. After the fact, the fight was actually stopped by the doctor. So when they thought it was an illegal knee, they came over. The doctor asked Weidman, hey, can you continue anymore? Weidman said, no, I cannot continue.
Oh, he said that, did he? So as I said, I watched it in a restaurant. He said no.
He said no, so he fucked himself there. That's where he fucked himself.
Oh, well, 100%. Oh, listen, if you say you can't continue, did he definitely say that, Lewis?
I'll look it up right now. Maybe you want to fact check while we're talking, but I'll look it up. I'm almost positive he did.
Well, listen, I'll tell you right now. If you say to a doctor that you can't continue, several things are going to happen. One, the fight's over, regardless of whichever way it happens, disqualification, illegal knee, whatever. If you say the fight's over, if you say you can't continue, the fight is over. That's a fact. And it also means that you're a pussy and you don't want to fight and you're taking the easy way out. Simple as that,
this is what they're saying on these forums.
That was Weidman looking for a way out.
Well, they're saying on the forums, but here, let me play devil's advocate for Weidman here now, right? And the fact that he said he couldn't continue is where he fucked himself, okay? But I'm not going to fault Weidman. If, let's say, he thinks it's an illegal knee, the ref comes in, says, hey, stop, that's an illegal knee. Right there, Weidman, right? He has a decision to make. He goes, well, look, I'm hurt. If I'm legitimately hurt, I'm going to take my time and I'm going to get my senses about me. Being hurt is different than not intelligently defending yourself. And the referee technically never gave him an opportunity to intelligently defend himself. That was kind of taken away from him.
No, but he hung himself. Simple as that. As soon as you say, I can't fight, I can't continue, the referees, the doctors, they have to think about fighter safety first.
Of course.
And if you say those words, you can't go back on those words. They'll say, hold on a minute. You know, you just said a second ago you weren't fit to continue. They've got to take that as gospel and run with it. So Weidman knew what he was doing. Maybe he was a little out of it. All right, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. But still, if you say those words, I cannot continue, then that is where your heart lies. You don't want to continue. And the fight's over. Regardless, whether you win or lose, that fight is over if you say that.
Yeah, he was trying to get the DQ.
That is a verbal submission. That is a verbal tap out.
Well, look, here's the thing, right? I put a Twitter poll up and I said, what should they have done with the co-main? The three options I gave was keep it as the Weidman loss, continue the fight, or judge it as a no contest. If I'm gonna make a decision, if I'm the athletic commissioner, it's my rules, I would judge it a no contest. I feel like they took the opportunity away from him to intelligently defend himself. He fucked himself, but it's a little weird. He had false information that an official gave him. But the fans said 46% said they should have continued the fight. 31% said no contest. 23% says keep the Weidman loss.
Interesting. So up until 3-4 minutes ago, whenever it was, I would have said the fight should have been deemed a no contest. That was prior to you telling me that Weidman said he couldn't continue, because I don't think they could restart the fight, because if they were legal knees and Weidman was allowed so much time to recover, that alters the outcome of the fight. So they should have called it a no contest and an immediate rematch scheduled. But the fact that you just said that Weidman said, I can't continue, then he can't continue. And it's a TKO victory for Mousasi. And it's a shame because, sloppy or not sloppy, regardless of however you describe it, it was a good back and forth battle. I was enjoying it. And everybody wants to see a true victorious winner and somebody that wins properly. That was a controversial win for Mousasi. It's not something he'd be happy with. It wasn't a proper victory. It was a victory at the hands of the commission. And it was a victory at the hands of Weidman saying something silly, something regrettable that he shouldn't have said.
And poor refereeing as well. We got to blame. We got to blame Dan Mergliata as well. It was poor refereeing to call the wrong thing. And
I don't know. Listen,
we didn't even say this.
Did he make the wrong call?
He did make the wrong call.
He made the wrong call. But it's hard at that moment in time. It's easy. I say easy. It's not easy. Even on the slow-mo replay, you had to watch carefully. And right before the knee landed, the hand came up for a second. And that's on slow-mo. So, from Dan Mergliata, it's a very, very tough call. It's a very tough call. And he's thinking fighter safety. It appeared to be an illegal knee, so he called a halt to the fight. Then Weidman said, I can't continue. Well, that ain't the referee's fault. That's nobody's fault.
There's an X factor here that we haven't talked about.
What?
New York State Athletic Commission. This is crazy. And this is actually true. Actually, I just remembered this fact. There's so many fucking stupid little ins and outs of this story that you forget the details, right? New York State Athletic Commission states that there is no instant replay for MMA.
Oh, my God, I know.
They couldn't go to the tape. So technically when Mergliata called it a DQ or stopped it and said it was an illegal knee, he was supposed to call it a DQ. They weren't supposed to go watch that tape again.
But the thing is, they say there is no, and Weidman kept saying this last night. He kept saying this, and I was slightly bemused by the comment. He kept saying, there is no instant replay in New York. And I'm like, well, there is, because we all just watched it. You know what I mean? Now, I know technically they're not supposed to use that. Maybe that's not a rule.
Right.
But when it is actually replaying in slow motion on the big screens in the arena, it's kind of hard to ignore that. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, but it's almost like in court when they say they can't.
It's a technicality. It's a technicality, and it's clutching at straws to try and get that overturned to a no contest. And to be honest, if that is a rule, it is a rule that there's no. The technical rule states there is no slow motion replay allowed, then I'm guessing that maybe he will be victorious in it being overturned to a no contest.
Yeah, I think that there's so many bad omens surrounding that fight.
But
I think those guys should never even try to be in the same building again. Those guys should say, fuck it, dude, let's never talk again. Let's never mention each other's names. That was bad luck. I don't know. There was somebody who's put a curse on that fight. That was crazy last night.
Yeah, but listen, at the end of the day, when those knees were delivered, and they were legal knees, we know that with the benefit of the slow-mo replay, Weidman put on a performance. He rolled around on the floor. He clutched his head like a 6-year-old that bangs his head and wants a Band-Aid from his mummy. Oh, he was holding his head like a little kid.
Well, that's the story
Mommy,
of the
I've hurt
fight
my head.
is
And then he tumbles back onto his backside and he's rolling around the floor, looking so sorry for himself. You know what I'm saying? I fought Anderson Silva at the end of the third round. My mouthpiece came out. He dived up in the air, kneed me in the face, opened stitches all over my face. Opened about 20. I needed about 20 stitches in my face. I'm on the floor. As he kneed me, boom, the buzzer went. Did I roll around on the floor going, oh, mommy, please help? No. I got up, I wiped the blood off my face, stuck my mouthpiece in, took a breath, had a sip of water, and then went back out and fought. I didn't roll around like a little bitch on the floor, hoping that the commission would give me a win by default.
Right. But hold on, let me say this as well.
That's what he did.
Since you're bringing that fight up, if they, all right, here's the thing, right? When I think if there's an officiating mistake in a fight that could legitimately mess up the
He reminded me of a football player. And when I say football, I don't mean NFL. I mean, in the UK, one of the reasons that it turned me off soccer, as you guys call it, but football for us, was the professional fouls. Now, the idea of a professional foul is, somebody comes close to you, you fall on the floor, you clutch your ankle or you clutch whatever, and you say he elbowed me or whatever, and then hopefully you get a free kick and you get an advantage in the game. They call it a professional foul. But I hated that, and it really put me off. And that's what Weidman was doing there last night. He was trying to call a professional foul to manipulate the outcome of the fight. Just like Daniel Cormier tried to manipulate his weight with that towel, Chris Weidman was trying to manipulate the outcome of that fight due to that legal knee.